Peace, love, and Black Power family. Welcome to another episode of Get This Wisdom Live. I am your host for the evening, Shakti Sterner, and I am also the editor in chief of Get This Wisdom magazine. Thank you for tuning in on behalf of my family to yours. And before we get started, I must provide my disclaimer. As you all may know, and for those just now getting introduced with the platform, I am a stay at home mother of two, and I provide all of my, well, I do all of my episodes from home. So my children are and they are children. We are a family. So you may hear them in the background running, playing, laughing. You may even hear a tear or two. But don't let that deter you from tonight's discussion. And if I just so happen to, have to pause the broadcast for immediate emergency, I will do so and rejoin as soon as I possibly can. Now, tonight's episode is going to be about our beloved ancestor, Malcolm X, born as Malcolm Little, and later on, therefore known as Elite El Shabazz. I felt compelled to do this episode because, as you all may know, uh, the anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination just passed this week, and you know, and in light of that anniversary, the family of Malcolm X, his daughter, and particularly, uh, with the assistance of civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, I believe it is, announced publicly that they are beginning the phases of a lawsuit against certain establishments uh, for a wrongful death of our beloved brother Malcolm X. And I'm going to be very mindful with my language because this is a sensitive subject, and we just have to be very aware of that. But let's go back a little further. Let's go back and on May 19th. What year was that? I'm not sure of the year right now. Slap me for being stupid. But I'll look it up in 1 second. 1 second. Because my daughter is uh, doing a little something in the background. But when we go back into the earlier years of Malcolm X, I remember, being a school age child in elementary school where I had to read the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, I believe it was. And like most of you all, um, well, I was born in '87, so there was a lot that I wasn't present for firsthand. So with some of you, I got my first introductions of Malcolm X, of course, through that book, but then again through the movie. The classic teaching tool of Malcolm X when he was portrayed by Denzel Washington. And being that I was born in '87, so there was a lot that I wasn't present for. I have to use certain things like that as a point of reference, right? So when I go back into the movie itself, and we got our introduction to Malcolm Little, pardon me. Uh, they presented his childhood, where he was living with his parents, and his parents were being harassed by the Ku Klux Klan and things of that nature, and how his father was murdered, and it was made to look out to be, something that it wasn't. We got a glimpse into Malcolm X growing up and becoming Detroit Red. Shout out to my hometown of Detroit in the state of Michigan. Um, we got to see him, partaking in a lot of behaviors that would not be considered righteous, right? Um, white men emphasize that, right? The robbing when he got together with I believe the character of Little. We got to see a lot of what that man looks like in that movie, and then also an autobiography of Malcolm X written by Alex Haley. So we got our formal introduction to someone that I'm sure the people of that time didn't really, especially those within that met him in the prison system, and then introduced him to Islam and Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm pretty sure at that time those people who were around, and even people, my family, my elders, my ancestors, I'm pretty sure that when they first got their glimpses of Detroit Red, who was to be named later on as Malcolm X, they weren't too they didn't know the profound effect that that young man would have on the masses, pardon me, the masses of African Americans, Afro American, Africans born in America, the so-called lost and found Negro, right? They did not know the impact that this one individual would have on many for generations to come. I am a testament to that. My daughter is a testament to that. I sit back with my child. We watch the Malcolm X movie. My daughter's 11. She was born in 2011. So we're speaking on someone who would grow to impact generations to come for decades. I get a little bit emotional. I have a very strong and deep adoration for Malcolm X, and of course his beloved dear late queen, uh, Dr. Betty Shabazz. So when we got all of us got our introduction, pardon me, our formal introductions to Malcolm X and his family via the movie and the books. And for those of you who were blessed to be there firsthand, to live the history firsthand, you should take that as a very, very blessed opportunity and gift, because so many of us are just we're hearing about it secondhand, third hand, fourth hand. So for those of you who is there firsthand, hats off to you. Take that as a gift. So we got our formal introductions, and in the movie, he ruffled some feathers, did he not? He ruffled some feathers, and I think I may ruffle some feathers here tonight, given the fact of my affiliations. Um, all praises due to the Lost 5% Nation. I am a member of a Lost 5% Nation. I've gone under the course of study. I have completed my studies, and I have been a representative and a member of that nation for about 9 years now. And we know that within the Lost 5% Nation, that our lesson of 120, our lessons come from where? They come from the NOI. Let's be real. Let's call it what it is. When Fard came to Detroit, or what those may know as D Mecca, and we'll get into more about that tomorrow on the city of God. We're gonna keep that short. We got a follow-up episode already. Um Fard had the conversation with Elijah. The questions were developed and asked from teacher to student basis, and that's basically how the NOI, got its official start. We know that Malcolm was introduced to Elijah, and he went under that course of study as well and became an ordained student minister and moved up through the rankings. So while he was a member of the NOI, what did Malcolm do? He became very fearless and bold and courageous in his ministry and delivery of the message to the people, to the public. He gave them what they needed to hear, what they needed to know, what they needed to learn. He gave them the initial, and I emphasize initial, right? The initial stages of knowledge of self, from converting over from that so-called lost and found Negro to the Afro American, in the words of Malcolm X, to the Afro American that is righteous, that is civilized, that has cleaned herself up, that is moving as a pillar of upstanding excellence within the Black community. That's what he did. Elijah, I'm gonna try to keep this. I'm gonna try to keep it cute, right? Because I'm still a mother. I'm still a woman, and I mean, we could go there. We could go there. I've been there with a lot of y'all. We know what Elijah did. He had his own positive ways of impacting people, right? He did, but we also know that he had some ways and actions that wasn't too right and exact. Now, did he? Now, did he? So, and I shouldn't be laughing now because he's an ancestor too. So it is what it is. Sue me. I'm going to state the facts, right? So Malcolm, he started speaking out to the public, started going to different speaking engagements. The people started to become attracted to his electrified, magnetic, and some people just they did not like it, right? They couldn't fathom that this young Black man who came from a lifestyle of violence and criminal activity and all these different acts that they wanted to publicize in the movie. They wanted to make sure we knew that that this young man was able to destroy all of those negative ways and actions, all of that devilishment, clean himself up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, getting rid of that hog, that swine, and becoming this powerful voice of motivation, inspiration, and just all around divinity for our people. He for people to get mad at that brother for speaking what we needed to hear at that time and what we still need to hear now shows what they were truly about. The intent of the devil, the intent of unrighteousness. See, when we look at God and devil, and notice I said God and devil. I'm trying not to go all religious with you because I'm not a religious person. We gonna keep that superficial. We gonna keep that surface level, right? Not superficial. That's phony. We gonna keep it surface level. God, for all, represents a vessel of righteous divinity. Devil, on a polar opposing end, represents that of evil, the intent, right? So when we have people that are carrying the the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and the intent of God and becoming a vessel of ministry to deliver the message of God, when we have other entities that are direct opposition in direct opposition of that, what are they? That ain't God to me. That would definitely be something of satanic Luciferianism, right? So when he started to gain traction and attraction from the youth and just a standard Black man, Black woman living day to day, he definitely angered some people. And some of those people were right within his own organization. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. And one of those people just happened to be Elijah Poole. Elijah. I just got to call a spade a spade. I can't even front. You know, for those who get upset about the message, that's not really my problem. Go handle that with your creator, your maker. That's not me. I come with the facts. Elijah, pertaining to the movie, he definitely got upset, but Elijah also had people in his ear too. He had the other little ministers running up to him, minister. Malcolm said this in the public. Malcolm said that in the public. Malcolm, Malcolm, Malcolm. And it seemed as though, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elijah was kind of like on the fence about it for a minute. He was trying to be neutral. But then once them little haters, the little minions of the devil, who really wanted to be Malcolm, they were so jealous of Malcolm's power that they hated Malcolm, and they kept going to the minister and kept saying, Malcolm shouldn't be doing that. Malcolm making us enemies. Malcolm, they didn't care about the people. They were jealous of Malcolm X. And finally, Elijah jumped right on in the bandwagon. Malcolm, you can't do any more speaking engagements, brother Malcolm. And Malcolm at that point went on his pilgrimage to Mecca, right? He went on over there and got introduced to a different sect of Islam. See, Islam has many different sects. The Allah's 5% Nation is another sect of Islam. We live Islam traditionally as a lifestyle as opposed to religiously. Then you have the NOY. That's a sect of Islam. You have the Sunnis, the Shiites. You have many different sects of Islam. And when he went over there, he made his pilgrimage. He broke bread with what was presented. See, even my daughter is excited, but that's cool. What was presented to be the Arab in that time. But if you do your actual research, the original Arab did not look like those pale faced imposters. That they just didn't. That those creatures are a creation of mixed breeding. But that's a whole different discussion. Anyway, so he went over there. He broke bread with the imposter Arab, the imposter Muslim, and he developed what he felt was genuine brotherhoods and sisterhoods, and he got a different level of enlightenment, a different level of awakening that he wanted to bring back here to America. Now, when he came back after his time being away, he was still the same brother, right? He still had the same core values and ethics, right? He still wanted to see the advancement of the Afro American. He still wanted to work towards things that would advance our people. Although he looked at Islam with a deeper connection and a deeper understanding, right? He did. Not to take away nothing away from his actual time over there. When I speak upon the imposter, we just know who the original Arab and Muslim was. We know that. But he came back and he wanted to implement those views moving forward. And he had a meeting with who? The UN, right? The United Nations. And there were just some people that they could not stand for that. So when you have your own people in your organization jealous of you, jealous of your power, you have people outside of your organization, different powers to be, that also recognize that power within you. What do you think is going to happen, especially during that time? Now, again, like I told you, I was born in '87, so there was a lot that I wasn't born for, but I have definitely done my research and had many conversations to know and understand what took place during those times and what happened to people like Malcolm X, who decided to use his power, use his voice for the betterment of beautiful black babies like mine that are right here with me. Um, he was assassinated by. Wait a minute. Let's not go to the by first. Let's go who he was in front of. His small children, his wife, the people that loved him the most, had to see their father and her husband shot down in cold blood. Let's think about what they went through that day. Let's think about that. To see their loved one slain in front of them. Pardon me for that. They had to see their loved one uh, slain down in cold blood. They had to live with those images of seeing their father and for Betty Shabazz, her husband, shot down on that stage. He wasn't out here hurting nobody. He wasn't out here creating acts of devilishment. He was out here trying to change the conditions, the atrocities that we as a people suffered. He was murdered for being fearless. One second. Pardon me for that. Yes, so before we get into who did this, we have to focus on the why. We have no more black leaders. Even those who proclaim to have, you know, the best interests of Africans born in America at heart. We have no more black leaders. But for those of them, those martyrs that gave the most ultimate sacrifice of their actual lives for us to get it, for us to understand what we were up against, what we did not deserve, what would happen to our children if that mindset and those conditions still stayed in place. They gave up their lives to change that. Their families had to suffer the loss of their loved one. So now, when we look all these decades later, and we look all on social media, all in the news, all in the neighborhoods, the schools, the communities, everywhere, what do we see? We see the same old thing that our ancestors died for so we could get the message. That we still see the same conditions and the same environments, the same suffering, the same babies being murdered. It's still alive and well. That well-oiled machine of white supremacy is still here. It has made its home in the hearts and the souls of us black people. That's why you still see us killing each other, us not loving each other, our babies not knowing who they are, our babies suffering, black men not in the home, black women not in the home, babies left to take care of themselves. That's They died so we could stop that. They were murdered so we could stop that. Betty Shabazz saw her husband laying in a pool of blood so we could stop his children, those beautiful babies hugged around their father, screaming, hollering in his blood so we could stop And what are we doing? Even those with knowledge of self. I got to call a spade a spade. You calling yourself God, you calling yourself Earth, you calling yourself Queen, King, whatever little fancy title you calling yourself means absolutely nothing if you are still participating and promoting in the destructive ways that are killing our children, that are showing our children that they have to see their mothers and their fathers destroyed. When will we take a hold of why they were murdered for us? When you go back into the movie, they were harassing Malcolm, right? Calling his home, hanging up, threatening Betty, threatening the kids. We gonna kill you, nigga, and all these different things. They were harassing that man, right? And he still went into the ballroom, even though he knew, he felt it in his soul that he wasn't gonna walk out of that boardroom, that ballroom. He still went. He knew that he was going to meet his death, but he still went. What does that say about the character of Malcolm X? When you know that there are oppositional forces that want you dead, you feel it in your soul, you feel it in your spirit. You know you can't shake the feeling. You know that your ultimate demise is going to be death. It's going to be murder. You know it. He knew it. He knew it before he went into the ballroom. That's why he sent the other brother away. If you go back to the movie, when he got there to the ballroom, he was a little bit upset, not much. And the one brother, I can't think of his name. They were having a conversation. Everybody else left out, and the one brother said something to the effect of, you don't need to go out there tonight, and all this and that and the third. And Malcolm gave him that look and he was like, I'm going. And I need you to go outside and call so and so, tell him to come on down here. I think it was a reverend or a pastor. He told him to call. He knew what was going to happen to him on that stage. He embraced his fate, and he did not run from that. He did not run from his fate. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was sacrificing, and he loved his people so much that he was willing to give the most ultimate sacrifice of his life. What does that say? Black man and black woman. What does that tell you? Does that not make you feel like you have some sort of obligation to honor the memory of not only him but many others? We talking about, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You can't talk about one without the other. We talking about even beyond that. When we go into the Nat Turners, the La Mambas, so many who got tired of seeing our people suffer that they decided enough was enough, and they would give their very own life to see it stop, to see their people and their community stop having to suffer. I challenge you. I challenge you to stop. And this ain't no, I'm not talking whatever you eat whatever you gonna eat. Whatever you wear whatever you gonna wear. Whoever you pray to whomever you gonna pray to. What I mean by stop is stop being a part of the problem. When you look at your family member, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, and I can't talk to that. I can't talk to them. I can't stand. Stop it. What did they do so wrong for you to hate them? It stops at home. It starts at home. It stops at home. You can't be nothing out there in them streets if you still perpetuating agendas of white supremacy and the devil in your own home. So now we got the why. We got the when. We got the where. We got the why. Now let's get to the how. We gonna get to the who. We gonna wrap it up with the who. Let's just go to the how. How was a man like Malcolm X able to be assassinated when he had all these people around him that claim, I love you, Brother Malcolm. Thank you, Brother Malcolm. How was he able to get assassinated? Well, firstly, when you're dealing with a system of white supremacy, you can't have a white face. Nah, because you're already expecting that. Because I know if a white person walk up on my door right now, I'm expecting you to have some feelings of resentment towards me. I'm not expecting you to think I'm your friend or your buddy. We don't know each other. We don't come from the same community. We have nothing in common. So I don't I already expect to be on some level of defense with you. So the how had to come from somebody who had a face that looked like him, right? Had to be able to get close to him. Had to be able to gain his trust. And at that time, yeah, Malcolm had a lot of people around him, but there were only few that he trusted. And I'm gonna leave your mind to think about that. Because we already spoke upon Elijah Poole, or for what most know as Elijah Muhammad. All I'm doing is leaving little tidbits of information out there. It's on you to go research and study and confirm for yourself. But somebody very close to Malcolm who had access to him pulled that trigger. If they didn't pull the trigger themselves, they were the ones who set the play in action. Because how did they have access to Malcolm? Well, Malcolm wasn't no no shallow-minded guy. He was very sharp, still sharp and still. He was very intelligent, so he knew who his enemies were. He knew who his open enemy was, and he knew who his internal enemies was. He was able to read the room. He wasn't oblivious. And he knew that somebody very, very close to him gave access, if you will. Even if they didn't pull the trigger, they set the play. I mean, the movie told us who it was, right? Well, the front man. But when we know in this society, if there's always a rabbit hole. Always a rabbit hole. So if there's a front man, there gotta be a middleman and an ultimate source, right? So when we look at who was close to Malcolm, who knew how Malcolm moved, his schedule, where he was gonna be at, that only leads you to a couple people. And I know I have some members of the NOY that watch the channel. This is no disrespect to the organization as a whole. I'm not saying that. So don't take my words for anything more than what they are. The organization as a whole was not responsible for Malcolm's murder or his death or his assassination. There are members within the organization, though, that you should be researching. And I'm going to leave it at that. Oh man, gotta laugh to keep from crying. This stuff is like a real life movie, ain't it? So we got the when, the where, the what, why, the how, and we went a little bit into the who. The who was responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X. Well, I guess now that his daughter has filed that lawsuit, the chick is gonna be coming home to roost, as Malcolm prophesies in his interview that ultimately ticked some of the higher ups off. The chick is coming home to roost, baby. And you gonna know, just like I know, who ultimately is responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X. But who all failed Malcolm X? There are many people that failed him. His whole community failed him. We still failing him. We're still failing him to this day. I don't care how many years you've been studying, you know, uh, the high science and the high mathematics, the culture of Islam, RBG, Pan Africanism, more, we could just name all of them. All of those who have some level of enlightenment, of awakening, we are failing Malcolm X. We are to blame for his untimely murder. We still are to blame. We can talk about all these powers to be all we want to talk about them. We could talk about them till we blue in the face, but until we start to honor ourselves, each other, our children, and for those that made the ultimate sacrifice of laying down their physical lives, until we start to truly move and operate within that honor and integrity, we are just as guilty as those who pulled the trigger. And I'll say it. If you got knowledge of self and you a man or a woman and you still on social media doing all this negative stuff where we got a spotlight on us at, where you supposed to be a leader and a pillar of your community, you are just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger. So don't come to me with that, I want to go to Africa and I'm so black empowered and all power to the people, when you're on Facebook sharing pictures of scantily clad women, when you're on Facebook sharing pictures of weed and all this stuff, liquor, things that directly destroy our community. We have to be better examples of that which we speak. We have to truly live the what we speak. That's what's called making these lessons walk and talk. Some of us just parakeet and not living a damn thing. You can't show and prove how any school of thought, not just the 5%, not just the why, any school of thought, cannot show and prove how that school of thought has elevated your way of thinking, your mindset, and those around you. You're perpetuating the fraud. So, like, we can go into all the ABC letter organizations and establishments that we want to, that we know have a part of his assassination. But until we look into the mirror and really hold ourselves accountable for being our brother's keeper, being our sister's keeper, and be the babies being the greatest at protecting those children, we ain't no more guilty than they are. It's a shame that we can go down a list of so many black men and women who who sacrificed their lives. We can go down a list and hundreds, thousands, the people who jumped in the sea off the ship. So many beautiful African men and women born here in the Americas and brought here to the Americas that have sacrificed their life for us to get it. So now, all praise and honor due to the beautiful Queen Malcolm X's daughter for taking on the courageous pursuit of starting a lawsuit. Um, we have to really put ourselves in the shoes of his family members, especially the ones that was there that day, right? The ones who have that image engraved in their minds, the ones who have to live with that. We all have to live with it to a degree, but not like they do. Imagine somebody that you love the most, your parents, your spouse, your children. Imagine having to see that person gunned down like a dog, and you're there. You're right there. Imagine having to see that person, and you ain't never gonna let that image go. So, yes, Malcolm X was a man that impacted many, but Malcolm X was also a man who had a wife and children who were there that day, and we can't imagine their pain. We can't imagine their suffering. If anything, we should feel very bad. We should feel terrible because what he sacrificed himself for is still happening today, and most of us are still playing our parts in the agenda. So it's like a slap in the face to his family, if you will. It's like we're spitting on a man's grave. So before all the conspiracy theorists and everybody start to going crazy, well, these people did it, that people did, these people did, these people was working together. Okay, cool, fine. I mean, whatever. But until we really have those deep reflections and understand how we are just as guilty as they are, and this is why we're guilty, because we're still playing a part of what killed that man. So we could point the finger all day. We could point it. What good is that gonna do? How are we gonna honor his life and let his assassination no longer be in vain? His daughter's doing what she got to do, and it took her. I'm a certain. It took her a lot of time and a lot of deep conversations with herself and those around her for her to finally come be as courageous as her father was and is to initiate that lawsuit. Although no amount of money, pardon me, my daughter wanted me to give her a kiss. Although no amount of money um can suffice or pay for what his family had to suffer through that tragic day. No amount of money can do that. Won't marry that loved one back. And even if they do win the lawsuit, which I'm sure they will, what is that ultimately going to change? What is that going to transform? Yeah, the wool, the veil will be pulled from most people's eyes, and they'll go ahead to know the truth, like we know who actually was involved with pulling the trigger. I mean, that's cool. That's cool, I guess. But what is that really going to change? I think that no, I don't think anything. I know. I know within my soul, just like Malcolm X knew that day he was gonna be murdered. I know in my soul the true answer is us, the people he died for. We have to do a lot better. We have to. We have people who paid the highest price. We have people who sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice for us to do better, for us to know how powerful we are, how royal we are. We have a duty and an obligation to make sure that their deaths are not in vain. And this is done by not going out there doing something miscalculated, not doing something that's emotionally driven. This is done by making sure that we are holding ourselves to the highest level of accountability and operating in that manner. You can't call yourself a king or queen if you ain't acting like it. And a lot of us ain't acting like it. It's just social media tells a story. It tells a very, very, very sad story of where we are as a people. Um, we do have some amazing, beautiful brothers and sisters out here doing the work in their selective fields, and I must give a proper acknowledgement to those brothers and sisters that are doing the work. I think that, again, I don't think I know that their work seems to be overshadowed at times. Um, but let's again call a spade a spade. Let's not talk about those beautiful brothers and sisters right now. We're gonna get to that before this ends. I'm gonna give a little bit more light. But for those who claim black power and you really, you know, a white man or a white woman black face, check yourself. You ain't black power. You are just as guilty as a person that pulled that trigger and anybody else that pulls the trigger on beautiful black and brown men, women, and children. You're just as guilty. We just as guilty. We really got to do better. I saw something on social media the other day that really hurt my heart, and I'm not gonna say no name. I mean, I can if I'm provoked, but I'm gonna leave the name out of it right now. I saw um somebody who claims to be one of the most influential revolutionaries alive sharing some things that are very derogatory about the black community, in particular black women. And that really just hurt my soul. And given what we're going through this week, we just had the anniversary of Malcolm X. We just had the birthday of the father of the 5% Nation on the 22nd. We've had some things in a very emotional week, and for me to see that person do that, let me know that there's a long way to go before we reach the promised land. So, with that being said, to you, bro, them tongue tied, to you, beautiful brothers and sisters that are doing the best that you can to be a pillar, an example of black power and righteousness. Keep going. Keep going. It's a marathon. Don't give up. Even though sometimes this society just beats you down, right? This society wants you to feel like giving up. That's what they want us to do. Don't do it. Take a little breather if you need to. Go get a glass of water, stretch, do some yoga, but get back to it. We in a marathon right now, and we have a duty and an obligation to those who came before us, those who sacrificed for us, and for those coming up after us to keep it going. So the prophecy is coming to pass. The chickens are definitely they on the fire. They coming home to roost, baby. And we ain't seen nothing yet. We just in the beginning quarter of the Gregorian calendar. We ain't seen nothing yet, you know. All in all, there's an energy of excitement if you try to find the beauty amongst the silver lining that finally somebody, somebody's, some corporations and establishments will be held accountable for the murder of Malcolm X. His family needs that. His family deserves justice, but they also deserve the people that he died for, which is you and me and everybody else that you look at in your house and in your neighborhood. They deserve for us to take the charge of accountability too, because he died for us. What are we going to do to pay him back? We owe him, and many others like I owe him, you owe him, we owe him. Let's do better. And with that, I'm going to end it here because I think I went a little bit deep tonight. I'm emotional and I need to reflect personally on this conversation. But I will leave you with this beautiful man, beautiful black man, and beautiful black woman. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm proud of you. I respect you and honor you. Take that same love, give it to yourself and your children. On behalf of my family to yours, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 o'clock p.m., for the city of God, which is going to be an episode going into the history of Detroit as it relates to consciousness and just so many different layers to that. So tune in tomorrow, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, from my family to yours, thank you for tuning in. And for those that will tune in later, you have a beautiful night. Peace, love, and black power. And I see you, Mama Cherie. Thank you.